Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Avatar Rewatch. And this one, it is the new divide over the Great Divide. Joining me as always, is the awesome Jared from Comic Sling. Hey, how you doing, buddy?
I'll take it. Yeah. Hi, how you doing, my dude? Happy New Year.
So, as the title of this video states, we're talking about the episode The Great Divide, a very divisive episode of the I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I could not resist that one.
Ironically, my favorite song from Linkin Park. Ironically, my favorite song
divides people. It's a great dividing. I'm sorry, I'm having too much fun with that one.
Yeah.
So this one is fandom at large kind of overly hates it. We'll get into that, and I kind of done some research. I was looking at some Reddit threads about it. But me and Jared, we weren't really active in the fandom when it was being broadcast. Nickelodeon were kind of more like recent converts. Me, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I got into Avatar. Jared is literally getting into Avatar right now, so we're a bit removed from that. So we'll be kind of discussing the episode as it is more. Jared, before we kind of go into the episode, what are your initial overall thoughts on this one?
Really dug this episode. I don't know why people hate it, and I'm sure our guide will discuss that. But what I realized watching this actually is I figured out which DC character I think Aang reminds me of, and actually this episode solidified it. He reminds you of Superman. Now you may wonder why. Okay, so number one, he is like the hope of this world. He is the last great hope. But here's the thing, though, and this episode solidified it, because in this episode, it's one of the things I really like. Aang was kind of the like mediator between the two conflicting groups, and that's exactly what Superman is. Exactly, or at least that's what that's one of his roles. In other words, he didn't have to use his avatar skills to be the avatar in this situation. It was more like his ability to bring people together and hash out their issues.
Yeah. I mean, I totally couldn't believe it. I mean, as far as like him being like the apex character of his universe, you know, and just the power and just kind of all that stuff. Yeah, Aang slots into like the Superman role very easily, so you got no argument from me there. So in my opinion, this episode starts out really strong with like setting up the whole point of the episode, where it's like they set up like the whole like debate versus like Sokka and Katara, do some really good setup with like the tent and whatnot, and like they use a visual metaphor like Sokka on one side, Katara on the other, and Aang literally in the middle. It's like the visual storytelling of this episode is actually really good.
Another thing I actually thought of is that this one is a good like analogy to our current time, because you have so many debates on like history, and then you have like one side has a perspective, another side has a different perspective, and then we're all just trying to agree upon what we can agree with the history that's written.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, for sure.
And this gets back to what we've been talking about throughout all these episodes, how this show deals with such heavy topics, but not in like a heavy-handed way, or in a way that it's actually digestible to all ages, really.
Yeah, I feel like that is definitely something that like the Avatar show really excels at and whatnot. So basically, the whole point of the show, the episode, and I mean, is they're basically at a Grand Canyon on steroids. You know, it's called
it's very much
the Great Divide. You know, like they said it. They said the name of the episode. You know, and you have these. Basically, you have these two tribes. You have this one person, which By the way, I don't know if you noticed this, but like that the guy, the initial guy from like the Clean tribe, the White tribe, is voiced by Scott Neville.
I knew that voice sounded familiar. I was like, where have I heard? Because again, he's one of those voices, and there's so many in this show that have voice acted in literally everything I have ever watched.
For those who are unaware, Scott Neville, probably for people watching this, probably they know him from Robin from Teen Titans. For the gamers out there, he is also Lloyd in Tales of Symphonia. So Jared, if you ever want to play an RPG with Robin as the main character, you need to play Tales of Symphonia.
I'll check that out. But yeah, it's actually really cool because you hear a lot of voice actors in here, and it's weird because recently I was rewatching the Fast and the Furious movies, and Gal Gadot showed up. And what's kind of funny is, okay, so I watched those Fast and the Furious movies, those two, after watching BVS and Wonder Woman. So I'm like, Wonder Woman was in this? I didn't know necessarily the story behind that.
I mean, those
just
are
really
the
cool.
roles.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, you're on a roll. Go for it.
No, it's like I like seeing the early roles of these actors that I've gotten so used to. I've taken Gal Gadot for granted. She'll always be my Wonder Woman, no matter what James Gunn says. But my point is that because for those of you that don't know, brief tangent, when Gal Gadot first came to America, that was her first acting role. And then she didn't really get work after that until Zach cast her as Wonder Woman. So she went from a side character in Fast and the Furious to the most recognizable female superhero of all time.
To be fair, she was in 3 of them. She was in 4, 5, and 6.
Yes, but she wasn't like the main character.
But he was one of the main characters, because let's be honest. I mean, this is an official tangent. He was kind of like because the Fast and Furious are ensemble movies. Like, obviously, you have like your main, but like he was kind of like obviously she was introduced in the 4th movie. In the 5th movie, she was brought on as like one of the crew. Same for the 6th movie, and then she had her heroic sacrifice and whatnot.
Rumor is they're bringing her back, which they brought Han back, so I'm sure they could figure out some way to bring her back.
This is
the universe where they took out a satellite by ramming a car at it in space. I'm still like, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, Fast and the Furious realism, like it's like you can't really complain about realism. Realism literally went out the window 5 movies ago.
Which is actually kind of interesting. It just clicked at me when I was watching these movies. These are comic book movies. Now, I don't mean they're based on comic books, but they have the same logic and feel of comic books. Because this is something that would happen in a comic book.
And if you look at, we'll go back to Avatar in a second, but this is just too good of a discussion.
It's a fun tangent. We can have fun tangents.
Yeah, I don't mind, but I don't want to get to go too far out of this. But like, but like, if you look at they're basically superheroes because like the way like the hits they take and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. When The Rock is like pulling a helicopter toward a truck. Yeah, they're basically like
or like when The Rock literally flexes off a cast.
Wouldn't it be great if Marvel doesn't work out, the entire Justice League becomes the next crew in Fast and the Furious? They'll make puns to Henry Cavill like easy Superman.
Sorry, it's just the
idea. Giselle, we always consider her our princess.
I guarantee you, if they bring back Giselle in this movie, they're gonna make some sort of like Wonder Woman reference.
They have to make a Wonder Woman reference, or like the bracelet thing. They have to do something because it's low-hanging fruit.
And low-hanging fruit is Fast and Furious' specialty.
Yeah, that's pretty much their thing. They're
mind you, we're not complaining. We're not complaining.
No, I'm not complaining. I like those movies for what they are. They're no Zack Snyder's Justice League, but they're still enjoyable. But back to Avatar.
Yeah, the final word on Fast and Furious is like, I mean, obviously, people go Fast and Furious. They know it's dumb. They know it's stupid. But the movies are still fun. And plus, like, they know they're stupid. They're not like. That's the difference between Transformers.
They're not trying to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Transformers is a dumb franchise, but they try to pretend that they're serious. Like the movies think they're higher art than they actually are. Whereas
Bumblebee was
whereas
pretty
Fast and
good.
Furious, that's the exception.
Mhm.
I'm talking about like the Bayformers.
Oh yeah.
But Fast and
chewing on.
Furious, they know exactly what they are, and they don't care,
And
there's
they
kind
lean
of an
into
honest-
it. That's the whole car in space thing.
The Yarrow in space.
I love it. And there's like candy wrappers floating. I'm like, this is great. But anyway, back to Avatar. But yeah, I like this episode because here's the thing. It's showing there's more to being an Avatar than just being this overpowered Superman, pretty much, because the Avatar really is the like guide of the world, if you will.
Yeah, he's the bridge between, and all that stuff. So
yeah,
getting back to kind of the summary, we have these two tribes. Let's just call them Team White, Team Brown, because I cannot remember. It was like Zhang.
That's gonna get
whatever.
racial real fast, but okay.
What else? What do you want to call them then?
Team clean, team dirty. I don't know. All right, well, just
the barbarians and the paladins. Let's just go that way.
That's good. All right, we'll do it that way. That's better.
Okay, so you got the barbarians and the paladins. They're this is basically like your story of like two people that are at war with each other. I'll get into that kind of thing later, but like, so they have to do this canyon, and there's this guide and he says no food because it attracts insects. Advice that some people still need to learn here in real life, but So, they go through the canyon, they get an attack with one of these canyon crawlers, which, like, they are some
so cool, by the way.
Yeah, I love the designs. They're pretty sweet. Kind of reminds me of, like, the Mutos from the recent Godzilla films, almost.
Yes, yeah. Kind of the Skull Crusher-like vibe, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, in the first attack, the guy gets injured. So basically, they're forced to, because they're initially these people are like the paladin and barbarians are traveling as one group. They're kind of forced to, so they kind of split up. Katara goes with the paladins, and then Sokka goes with the barbarians. And so they're kind of camping, and it turns out both of them brought food under the assumption of, the other people, they had to have brought food, so of course we brought food. And basically, you hear their side of each story. And what I really, really like is both of them, the side stories, use different animation styles, but they're actually two different animation styles. And what I love is the barbarian one is actually a lot rougher, and the paladin animation is a little bit more cleaner. Like it's it kind of tells two sides of the same story and whatnot. And so this is kind of basically where it's kind of like one of those classic stories where you have two sides and you're supposed to pick, but in reality, neither side is like the good side. It's like both sides are wrong kind of thing. Like it's a kind of a classic storytelling formula, but I think they execute it to perfection here. So, next day happens. It turns out that the food gets unveiled. Aang's really, really mad at them because and then all these cannon crawlers, and then basically they start coming to blows. They start fighting, and so Aang kind of figures out a way. Basically, puts bags around them and does the carrot. Like, hey, look, and then goes up, kind of goes up it, and then he says, "Oh, hey, I knew these people." Which I like, while possible. I think anyone who watches it, it seems kind of sus. And they tell their different, they mend their differences, and they're on their way to Ba Sing Se, the great bit city of Ba Sing Se, which I think.
And I love the way Aang basically just lies on what the truth is.
Yeah. And I love how they act shocked at first, and they're like, hey. So, yeah, I think this was a pretty good episode. And so I had mentioned about this being kind of overly hated by the wider fan base, and I did some poking around at the wretched hive of scum and villainy that is Reddit.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm actually on Reddit all the time. It's bad, but you
Sure
can
you
kind of
are.
make it your own.
Although, actually, speaking of Reddit real quick, Nick sent me something that looks like it was written by me. It's all about how Superman only works with Wonder Woman and Lois Lane is irrelevant. So, there you go.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, are you on Reddit, Jared?
Yeah, I was like, yeah. That was almost like me.
Yeah, anyway, so apparently...
Go on, Nick.
So apparently this episode was shown in reruns a lot on Nickelodeon because it's kind of, the story itself is very standalone. So Nickelodeon would always just kind of throw it in whenever they needed to kind of fill space. And so like anything that's shown a lot, it kind of gets overly hated. You know, it's kind of like the Nickelback of the Avatar. Oh, dear God, did I really just make
this photograph?
Oh, actually, that meme. So yeah, so since me and Jared don't have that kind of baggage, we actually really like this episode, and it's actually turning out to be one of the longer episodes. I mean, it didn't help that like we did like a 5-minute Fast and Furious tangent, but like,
Hey, it works.
So Jared, kind of finishing this up, what are your final thoughts on this episode? Like, what did you kind of really think?
I don't know. See, here's the thing, though. When I was watching this episode, I was like, this was great. Why do people hate it? I get the reasoning now because it's like it kept playing over and over and over again, so people got tired of it. But besides that, I'm like, okay, plot's good. It's animation's good. There's literally no reason besides annoyance to hate this episode.
I would agree with that. I'm sure pesky YouTube people have made videos saying like dissecting how bad it is. You know how people can be like that. But overall, yeah, I agree with you, Jared. I really like it, and so yeah, see you guys next week. We're reviewing episode 12, The Storm. I'm actually looking forward to episode 13, The Blue Spirit. That's going to be a really good one.
Me too.
But yeah, so this has been Nick Gibson with my good friend Jared. And remember, I can only show you the door. You're the one who has to walk through it.